Hello, hello. Good evening. I feel like I'm super close to my camera. I think I'm right at 6:30, so I'm just gonna get started. My name is Susan Taylor, and I am the surrogate program manager here at Fairfax Surrogacy. In addition to that, I have been a gestational surrogate or gestational carrier, or surrogate, whatever, however you want to call it. Twice. I have grown two babies for two families. And so I talked about a little bit last week that that's what I was going to talk about tonight, and answer any questions that anybody has about, what it's really like being a surrogate. Um, so we'll just kind of, if hopefully we get some people joining and asking questions, but you can always ask questions in the comments later, and then I'll come back and look at them and answer um, either in the comments, or I'll answer them in my next one, depending on if it's something that I haven't really covered yet. So, just to get started, I talked about last week that why I decided to become a surrogate, and that I'm a midwife and love pregnancy and birth and women and helping women, and that's really what triggered me becoming a surrogate. And so, of course, my first intended parent was intended parents were a same-sex couple. I say parent because I always think about my intended mother, of course, and everything she struggled with and went through to have a baby of her own. And I think in my mind, when I decided to become a surrogate, that's because when I did, it was because I was watching the reality show I talked about last week, about a woman who was really struggling to have a baby of her own, and suffered through cancer and ton of IVF treatments of her own, actually before they discovered she had cancer. Um, and so I think when I was deciding to become a surrogate, in my mind, that's kind of what I thought of was, a woman, somebody like me who wanted just to be a mom and have a baby and wasn't able to do so without the help of somebody else. And So while I really also love the idea of helping a same-sex couple, I think that was just kind of where my thoughts were on starting my first journey. So, anyways, so my first couple, I there was a lot that I love, some stuff that I did change with my second journey. I did want to use an agency to begin with, because even though no matter how much I read and I felt like I was reading and researching and joining groups and learning, I still felt like there was so much to know about surrogacy. Um, and so I really wanted to work with an agency. And I think I touched on this last week that I couldn't find an agency that was open to me having a home birth. And that's where I kind of I don't think I ever intended to go independent. I don't even think I really knew what being independent meant. But I posted in a birth group because I'm a midwife, so I'm in a lot of birth groups, and I posted in a professionals group just saying, has anybody supported or had a surrogate as a client? Or, this is what my thoughts are, and this is what I'd really like to do, but these are kind of the obstacles that I feel like I'm facing. And does anybody have any advice? Because posting in the surrogate groups, there was really nobody having home births in there. And so that wasn't really a resource that I could utilize at the time. Now there's tons of people, and there's like natural birth surrogate support groups, and it's amazing. So anyways, a local doula said, hey, I actually have a good friend who's looking for a surrogate and needs the help to have a baby. And she was local to me. And I was like, would she be open to me having home birth? She's like, yeah, I think so. She's naturally minded. And so anyway, she introduced us, and we went to dinner with her and her husband and loved them. And we walked out. My husband's like, how could we not? How could we not help them? And so off we went to do this journey. And I didn't even know what I didn't know. In fact, I didn't know what I didn't know until I started my second journey and worked with an agency. And that's when I really realized how much I didn't know about it. So yeah, there was like a lot of questions that I didn't have answers to, and I didn't have a lot of support. I did join support groups and things like that on Facebook, but these are, people I don't know. You get different answers when you post something. Not every support group is really supportive. You will find some of them are amazing, and then some of them are purely more like information based, not really support based. So that was one of the biggest things that I knew I wanted to change when I went to my second journey. It's just not feeling like I had a sisterhood or a really good support system. I made friends with a couple surrogates on Facebook. But we were, Facebook friends. I didn't know them in real life. I didn't feel like I could say, hey, do you have tips on this injection, on how to do these? Or, do you take this medicine at a certain time? And does it help you feel better? Or is there any, just any kind of support whatsoever, just asking just general questions like, hey, is this normal? This is come how I'm feeling about this, I just didn't have anything like that. And so I knew early on that if I ever, which I did not think early on I was going to do another journey, but if I ever did, that I would want to work with an agency, and I was just going to have to find somebody who was going to do a home birth with me. And the other thing, that I didn't love about that journey was because we were independent. And the other aspect of being independent and not having support is there's no third party to really help. I mean, we had lawyers, we both had attorneys. And actually, my attorney was an experienced surrogate. So that was helpful. And she was one of the people I became friends with and that I kind of leaned on. But, she was my attorney also. So I didn't want to bother her, although I don't know that she would ever have considered it a bother. But you're talking about things like finances in the beginning, and when you go into surrogacy, I think you just kind of go into it like, this is going to be amazing. There's a compensation, and what that can do for your family. Where you're going to use that and how it's going to help, and obviously, all of that. But it's also like you're having a baby for somebody else, and this is so amazing. And you just, you want to be friends with your IPs, you want to get to know them, and you just want to get pregnant with their baby and experience this pregnancy together and just be so excited. And then when you have to start talking about finances and financial, stuff, and, it becomes awkward. And it's at the very beginning of a relationship or a friendship. And, most people don't really go into relationships and talking about this big exchange of money. And so that was something else early on I knew that I did not ever want to have to do again. And some people are totally fine talking about that. I admittedly don't like confrontation. I don't like talking about money. So I was definitely not the perfect person to be on an independent journey. While I am a good person to do it because I am well researched and I can definitely advocate for myself, I just don't like things like that. And so while we were friends and we had a really great journey together, I do feel like there were some aspects in the beginning that were really awkward, that I didn't love, and that I feel like things might have been a little bit better had we not had to have those discussions. Um, so those were things that I definitely just didn't love, and why I knew I had to, if I was ever going to do it again, it had to be with an agency. It just wasn't going to go. And I don't say that because I work for an agency. I actually work for an agency because I loved the experience of working with an agency. And so that's why I got in, to do this, because I was a midwife. I had a job, and I just had such a great experience, became so passionate about building families. That's why I decided to start working for an agency, and just educating other people about this world that so many don't know about. So things that I loved, well, I loved that they were local. I thought that was really awesome. It gave an opportunity for my intended mom to come to almost every single one of our appointments. She was able to palpate and, feel her baby. My midwife would help her feel where the baby's head was and his little booty. And I loved that. I love that we really just got to experience the pregnancy completely together and prepare for the birth together, and bond with our midwives together. We had, a primary midwife, a licensed midwife, and then she had a student who's actually become one of my closest friends since then. And so I did love that aspect. I love that she really got to be completely involved. And when he kicked, she got to feel it, because we were always, we were together a lot, and we would be able to have meals together when we'd meet for appointments and just chit chat about life and what was going on with both of us. And so I really, really did love that she was local. Of course, I also love that my other intended parents were not, because, it's also you're scheduling around our midwives and my schedule and her schedule, and if her husband wanted to come, his schedule. And so it's a lot to navigate through, and just to everybody get on the same page with, when we're going to do these appointments. And I wanted to make sure I didn't have to bring my children, because I wanted to just be able to be fully focused on the pregnancy, and her be able to be focused without my kids there, like running around. And my kids were 2, 4, and 6, I believe, with my first journey, somewhere around there, about 2.5, 4.5, 6.5. So, distractions, adorable distractions, but distractions nonetheless. And so with my next journey, I actually did say I would prefer not to have somebody local, even though that's one of my favorite things about that journey was that she was local to me and got to come to everything. And I love that for her. And I actually loved it just for me. I love that, I just got to experience that with my first journey that I got to have her there for everything. But then it was actually one of the things that I said with my next journey, I did not want. I did not want to work with a local couple. Because I was at that when I was my first one, I was a student midwife, and then I was a licensed midwife and had my own practice, and things were just busier. And my kids were older and they were busier, which meant I was busier because, our children's schedule are our schedules. And so I knew that I wanted something a little bit more flexible. And I knew that having international attendant parents would probably allow for a little bit more flexibility. As far as relationship goes, we knew early on when her and I talked on the phone the first time that we both wanted friendship, whatever came out of it. We wanted, it was going to be organic. We weren't going to force anything, but of course we knew we were doing something amazing together, and we knew that we wanted some sort of friendship, and a long lasting relationship. So we decided on that early on, and we have, he just turned 7, earlier this month. And we still communicate. We're still friends on social media, and she and I text occasionally, and she always tells me really funny stories about him and like his first days of school and just funny things. He says lots of funny things. And he's very, very smart. So he knows all about having, that Miss Susan carried him in her tummy, and he claims that's why he likes Mexican food and and that was awesome. And so it's really fun hearing all those stories about him. So yeah, so my first journey, it was independent, a heterosexual couple, local to me. So we would consider that in this industry, domestic couple. Um, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no support. We did not use an escrow company, which I would never, ever recommend. In fact, I told a friend of mine that not too long ago who works for an escrow company. I was like, you're going to fall out of your chair when I tell you this. I didn't use an escrow company with my first journey. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, what you didn't know, what you thought you knew that you didn't actually know. But it was fine. I mean, we had a great relationship, and thankfully I had an intended parents that paid on time every month and exactly what they were supposed to. And it was never an issue. But that's not always the case. I definitely feel like I lucked out with my first because of things that I didn't know and because of things that we did and didn't do. I feel like I definitely was really lucky that that's who I matched with, that I matched with those intended parents, because and they probably feel the same way about me. Things could have totally blown up both sides of that. So yeah, sometimes I think about that. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But it's a great relationship, and I'm, thankful that I had that experience to watch her become a mom. And my second journey, like I said, I knew I wanted to work with an agency. So I reached out to a lot of agencies when I decided. For a long time, I wasn't ever going to do it again. I said that I would birth my first little surrogate baby a million times again, just to see his mom hold him for the first time. But I didn't feel like I wanted to do that again. It was a hard delivery, was an unexpected delivery of what kind of happened at our birth. It was beautiful nonetheless, but I definitely did not feel like that was going to be something I would want to do again. But fast forward like a year and a half, and kind of got the urge to do one more journey. But I really felt compelled to help a same-sex couple. I've always been a really big LGBTQ plus advocate and supporter. And so I think maybe I felt a little bit of guilt for not helping a same-sex couple the first time, although I feel really happy with who I helped. And she had a really, she's a really big story to becoming a mom. So I am grateful that I'm the one that got to help her. I really feel honored that that she chose me to do that. So, but I really knew I wanted to help a same-sex couple. It was something I felt pretty passionate about. And I really knew I wanted an agency. Really knew I wanted to work with an escrow company. I really knew I still wanted my home birth. And I didn't need them to be international. I just didn't really want them to be local. I was worried about there not being a good relationship because of that. But I thought, well, I have a great relationship with my first intended parents. I'm sure it'll be fine. And, I just knew that I was super busy and it was going to be really hard to schedule around everybody's schedule. And anyways, I applied at several agencies. Most of them told me no again. You can't do a home birth. Nope, we don't do that here. And so it's like, okay. And I posted in a surrogate support group, just, kind of venting my frustrations and maybe looking for potential intended parents independent again. I know. I said I would never. Um, but I just didn't know, do I want to do another journey? How important is a home? Would I bend on that? Maybe I will. I don't know. Let me see how strong this desire gets to help a same-sex couple have a baby. Um, Anyways, a friend of mine said, I worked with this agency and I did a birth center, but they were really cool about it. And, maybe they'd be fine about you having a home birth. And this is an email. Why don't you just reach out? Because I was like, I'm not filling out another application. I'm not doing it. I'm not getting more profiles only to say, oh, I love these independent parents. I would love to help them. And then say, and they're okay with a home birth. And then say, what? We don't allow home births. I wasn't going to go down that route again. So I emailed this woman at this agency and she called me and was like, wow, I've never had anybody ask if they could do a home birth, but okay. If you're okay with that and they're okay, and then to the parents are okay with that, why not? So she's like, I don't know. We've never even had this discussion with intended parents, and I don't know who's going to be open to it or not, but let's give it a go. And so I was kind of still with a couple other agencies, still kind of debating, would I have a hospital birth if I found that, just the perfect intended parents that, just really, that I felt really strongly, a strong connection for. Um, and ultimately I decided, no, I know how I want to give birth. I know the benefits of home birth. I know where I feel safest and most comfortable. And I just didn't really want to bend on that unless it was medically necessary. So, anyways, so I told this agency, I want to work with you exclusively. I don't want to work with anybody else, and I don't care how long it takes. So she was like, great. I reviewed some profiles, some I liked and really felt a connection with, but they were not comfortable with a home birth, which is fine. Um, Others, it was just kind of too close to home, I feel like. And so I passed on them, although that's hard. And anybody who's ever done a journey and has looked at profiles will tell you, you want to help every single person, no matter what, no matter if they're what your ideals were going into it or not, because everyone is so deserving that wants a baby. So I did not make notes this time, so I'm sorry. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. um, Anyways, I waited about 4 months before I got my intended parents profile and knew right away these two guys in Spain. I did not expect to have intended parents that far away and fell in love and said, yes, I would love to work with them. And they sent my profile to them and they were also like, yes, and actually loved that I was a midwife and wanted to have a home birth. Come to find out, they're pretty holistic minded. And so they loved that was going to be how we were going to give birth if all went well throughout the pregnancy. So, yeah, international, same sex, with an agency, with escrow, everything completely opposite of my first journey. And it went equally as well. Again, I lucked out with intended parents both times. I really, really lucked out with my intended parents. I ended up becoming very close, even closer with my intended fathers than I did with my intended mother. So I found out really quick that you don't have to have a domestic couple or even a local couple to have a relationship. They can be anywhere. And as long as you guys have a connection and you click, you're going to have a relationship. That surrogate baby will be 5 in May and we still talk. One of my intended fathers and I talk almost every day. And then we have a group chat. I have like a chat with one and a group chat with the other, with both of them. And in the group chat, we chat every week, every 2 weeks. And then the other dad and I talk a lot more often. But we talk about life and stuff. And then the rest of us, we talk about like the Real Housewives and things like that. Because we watch it. We all watch. That's all of our guilty pleasure, the Real Housewives. So anyways, so yeah, a totally different journey, equally rewarding, equally beautiful, a better friendship, surprisingly, with a couple across the world. The only downfall for them to being in Spain is I miss them. and I want to see them and they're really far away. So that is the only downfall to me of them being there. It was really hard to say goodbye to them after they were here for the birth for a month. It was really, really hard to say goodbye and not know when I'd get to see them again. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like an overview of my two journeys, what I do differently. Definitely would always recommend working with an agency unless you have matched, you've done a journey together, like with my intended fathers, if they ever came back, which they're not, and I'm not having any more. But if they ever had come back and said, hey, we want to do another journey, we want a sibling, I would have done that with them without an agency. But I would love to have gone through the agency also because I just love that support of being with an agency. I like the sisterhood, I like the support groups, and I like having there's just always somebody there that's super knowledgeable that's teaching you what's next and what should be happening, and just making sure everything's going smoothly and everything is happening, and just having somebody checking in with you is nice, just to have, to say, hey, is everything still good, and to have those awkward financial conversations when you don't, hey, I need it, my doctor recommended, or my midwife recommended that I do this. Oh, I don't want to say anything, and she's like, I'll ask. And actually, I talked to her when I was wondering if they would want to do a sibling journey. And her and I were just talking as friends because we became friends, my case manager. And I was like, I want to know, like, if they want to do another journey. And she's like, do you want me to ask them for you? And I was like, oh, maybe. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to ask them. Like, they're my friends. I'll just ask them. It'd be awkward coming from you. They would know it's coming from me. And then they'd be like, why is Susan not asking us this? And so, but it was nice, 2 years later that she would be like, I'll reach out to them and see if they want to do a sibling journey or if they have thoughts of that or anything. So yeah, I loved that aspect. But I loved both my journeys, regardless of, um, sexual orientation or location. And they were both equally, like I said, rewarding. Two totally different journeys, obviously, because my intended mother had been through so much to have her sweet little baby boy. And my intended fathers, it was like they had just signed on. Like literally, I got their profile as soon as the agency had it. So they were like, "What? We're matched." And then we got pregnant the first time. They're like, "What? We're pregnant?" So yeah, that was a super easy journey. It feels like everything went perfectly. Even the delivery, everything was awesome, and we couldn't have asked for anything better. So that's um, that's it about my journeys. If you want to drop questions in the comments, I'm going to post this so it'll still be up on our page. So anybody can ask any questions. And if you want to know more about working with an agency or working with our agency, or, working with intended parents, especially now with COVID, if you want to know more about that, working with intended parents that are international, happy to discuss that. I will say my biggest piece of advice going into doing a journey is think about who you'd want to work with, but also be open. I think having a good idea, and I talk about this with every surrogate that I talk to. Are you open to this? And most of them say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. But the ones that are like, I'm not sure. I'm like, you know what? If you just say yes to everything, you get to see so many different intended parents profiles and people that you may never have thought that you would, you may have thought, I don't ever want to work with somebody international. That's, oh my gosh, that's so far away. I can't imagine that we'd have a good relationship. How would that work? And then you see their profile and you fall in love with them. Or you're like, and I still was open. I would have seen somebody international if they had, domestic, or even in my neighbor, if they said they're your neighbor, but I'd been like, okay, I'll look at their profile. And I probably would have their baby too. So yeah, I would just say be really open about, who you work with. Cause I think a lot of times the person you connect with is not necessarily who you thought you would want to work with going into a journey. And work with an agency. And if you don't work with an agency and you do really want to go independent, join groups, really try to connect with experienced surrogates, pick their brain, make sure you have a really, really, really good lawyer who's really well versed in assisted reproductive technology, third party reproduction, surrogacy, essentially. And always use an escrow company. Always use an escrow company. there's a lot of attorneys that hold escrow. And then there's, of course, some really big escrow companies who are amazing in our industry. Definitely would recommend that you do that. Like I said, I really lucked out with my intended parents, and that was not an issue. But now I know so much more, and I know that how it could have gone. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit. I would definitely be happy to share more if anybody has questions. And I'll talk next week about, what did I decide to talk about next week? Let's see. Next week, that's what I want to talk about. Yeah. Okay, so next week I'm going to talk about frequently asked questions, like, and not just regular standard frequently asked questions, but like the ones that I got as personally as a surrogate, and the ones that I know a lot of my friends that are surrogates, because now I have a ton of surrogate sisters, as I call them, have they been asked, and so I'm going to talk about those. I'll talk about regular ones too, like the process and matching, and when an embryo transfers. Like, I'll talk about regular things that people want to know about, but I'm also going to talk about some of the funny questions that I'd get asked a lot. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about next week. If you want to reach out to me directly, if you don't want to post a comment, you can always email me. My email, and I'll put it in the comments also, is staylor@fairfaxsurrogacy.com. And you are welcome to reach me there. Check out our website if you want to learn more about becoming a surrogate. It's fairfaxsurrogacy.com. And I look forward to talking with you guys again next week. And I'll check back throughout the week to see if there's any comments and answer anything you guys want to know. Have a great weekend.